Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Robbie Basel Show, episode number 34. Today's Monday. It is September 11th, and of course, you see me rocking the Jets jersey, and of course, I'm rocking right outside USA, United States of America scarf from U.S. Soccer. As you remember, September 11th. It's a day in history that will never be forgotten. September 11th, 2001, and I felt like it was only right for me to wear something United States related along with my Jets jersey. So we're all together, and this country mourns September 11th, but there's a lot to talk about. I don't think this podcast is here for you guys to mourn or do. I mean, you can mourn, of course, but you get what I'm talking about. And before I get into the sports news from the last 2 weeks, because we have a lot to talk about, I have some breaking news for you guys. I just found this out 1 hour ago. Into the Stands begins this Thursday. Yes, this Thursday. It is going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll leave a link to the YouTube channel on which we'll be streaming on in the description of this video. It's going to be a lot of fun. Myself, Colin McGee, Chris Gambino, all back in the studio. Listen, we had 24 great episodes in an NFL draft live stream last season, and it could have not have gone any better for us. One of the top streaming shows from last year, just saying, and the most watched freshman show ran by the freshmen. So, listen, we got a lot to build on. Season 2 begins on Thursday. Make sure to use the link down in the description to see the YouTube channel. And if you see the Instagrams for Into the Stands, myself, or even the Robbie Basel Show's Instagram, we will all be posted. All three IGs will have the link for the video in the Instagram story that day. Or you guys can use the links in the bio of my Instagram and the Into the Stands Instagram. So all the handles, of course, will be in the description. I hope to see you guys there live. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we have a lot. We're talking mostly NFL on Thursday. So if you're into the NFL season, hear what we have to think about our predictions for the season and more, possibly, then go watch and listen to us on Thursday, 5 p.m. You guys don't want to miss it. But now for what's been going on recently. So 3 topics to talk about today. NFL Week 1, and we're going to preview the Jets game tonight. We have the U.S. Open, which is actually going to be talked about last, and to recap my picks and my thoughts on the whole tournament, because there were some crazy matches, crazy upsets galore, and none of my picks made a final. We're close, though. I'm getting better at this. Yeah, nothing less said about that, the better. And, of course, I'll give you updates on the Premier League, and hopefully soon, me and Dylan will record the Champions League video. Hopefully it's out by next Monday. So we're working on it. 2 guys in college, a lot of stuff going on. I have ESPN work. It starts tomorrow. If you're watching the Iona volleyball game, I'm going to be behind the camera. My good friend Grant Del Vecchio will be on the call with Charlie. You guys should go watch that game tomorrow. Those guys we're calling that game a lot of fun. They're great guys. But let's talk about some of the NFL games. We're not going to talk about all of them. Kind of like how we do with the Premier League. We're going to talk about the best games. And we cannot start this without talking about the game from Thursday night. Now, I watched this with Colin right here on this TV. You can't see it. Can't even see it. What a start. So the TV that's right here next to this door, me, Colin, of course, if you remember Cam Woolley, the Woolly Mammoth, he's also the show on WIUR. We all watched the game in here, and I have so many thoughts on this. I could talk about Kadarius Toney all I want, but there's so much to talk about from this game. Let's just dive right into it. So, we have the Detroit Lions. I think I should start with them. They are a team that are going to try to prove everybody wrong this season. They are one of those couple of teams. A lot of the NFC North, I feel, is like that. And the reason is they had a chance last season to make the playoffs in the middle of a rebuild. Because they're still trying to build. They didn't know who their quarterback was going to be. Jared Goff kind of emerged again last season. And to be fair, he kind of played a solid game on Thursday night. 22 of 35 for 253 yards and a touchdown to add his way. That's one of the positives. Apologies about that. Negatives. Actually, no, there's one more positive. Lions defense. Front seven looked great. And, of course, the guy that just could have drafted in Brian Branch had an interception, a pick six, the first one of the season. And, yeah, you got to take that back to the house, off the hands of Kadarius Toney. And he walked his way to the casa as the Lions took this one home 21-20. Now, the negatives from the Lions, there's a couple of them. You guys should question the running game. And that's my biggest negative. That's the only negative I've discussed. There's a little bit of nitpick things that I could talk about here. And the fact that you drafted, if you remember the draft stream, I questioned this a lot because it didn't make sense. You had DeAndre Swift at the time. They just signed David Montgomery. Then they trade DeAndre Swift. And then you draft Jahmyr Gibbs. And he goes 7 carries for 42 yards. Is that really worth drafting the 12th, like a top 15 NFL draft pick on? 7 touches for 42 yards? I don't know. I mean, you guys can prove me wrong there. Josh Reynolds was actually the leading receiver in terms of yards. But of course, you cannot go this game without talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was one of my favorite players last season, and he's not disappointing me again. I wish I had him in fantasy. I don't have him in any of my leagues. But he had a big day. Big day also for Sam Laporta. He had 5 targets for 35 yards. And on defense, I could not talk enough about Alex Anzalone. He had a great day, 5 tackles. Big days as well from Brian. Of course, I mentioned Brian Branch with the interception. But a player who I don't think didn't have anything on the stat sheet that had a big day was Aiden Hutchinson. He had a lot of quarterback pressures. That just front forward has had a big day in general. And now to the Chiefs, who are a mess. And when they lost Travis Kelce, when we've all watched that game and found out before that Travis Kelce was going to be out, I think I knew it. And the guys who were in here with me as well knew it, that the Chiefs were going to struggle on offense. And that could not have been more factual. Patrick Mahomes is the leading passer. Of course, he's the only quarterback that played for Kansas City. And he was also their leading rusher. And their leading rusher, not a quarterback, was Isaiah Pacheco, who went 8 carries for 23 yards. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else you can say. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things you could say about this game as a whole, whether it would be the lack of running game, the fact that the leading receiver only had 2 catches for 48 yards. Is Travis Kelce that big? It's so crazy to me that Travis Kelce impacts the Chiefs that much. And to me, that's a problem. A problem that they're going to need to figure out very quickly, because if Kadarius Toney's still trying to catch passes for them, hoo boy. The less said about that, the better. But a lot of confusing moments from the Chiefs. A lot of confusing moments from another game I want to discuss. I want to just discuss this game because it was one of the last games I watched yesterday. And we're going to go to New England. Eagles, Patriots. That's the next game we're going to discuss. And I'm questioning a lot of the mindset of Nick Sirianni. You go in the fourth quarter. You're up 5. Around midfield-ish. You go for it on a 4th down. You don't get it. You're giving the Patriots a chance to win. Why not punt it and pin them deep? Take your 5-yard penalty and give yourselves a better chance to punt it long. I don't know. Hold on, I got to do something real quick. This is one take for every time we're doing this because there's no video edits because the software is not working. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Sorry about that, guys. But back to this game in general. Kenneth Gainwell's their leading rusher. Another confusing one was Kenneth Gainwell being the leading rusher for the Eagles. I mean, if you look what he had, I mean, DeAndre Swift to 1 carry, 30 yards. Why did they trade for him again? I don't know. But the start that the Eagles had, they went up 16-0. And I thought it was over. Colin thought it was over. He was with me. A lot of the guys I was texting on my phone, which is right here, we all thought it was over. And then the Patriots just showed their resiliency to back themselves down and lose by even more. And you gotta credit the Patriots a lot for their efforts to try and come back into this game. You have to. Because Mac Jones, he threw the most pass attempts in week 1, 33 of 54 for 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, which was, I believe, also a pick 6. But the running game, not it at all for New England. And I didn't think it would be. Adding Ezekiel Elliott, he was their leading rusher, 7 carries, 29 yards. But, I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, not having a good day. Kendrick Bourne had a great day receiving, 6 receptions for 64 yards. Big day for him. You also had a big day for Hunter Henry. He had 5 catches for 56. Then Ramondre Stevenson couldn't run the ball, but he could pass catch. 6 catches for 64 as well. But a very interesting game. You had Juju get a little bit involved. And then defensively, you had a nice day from guys like Christian Gonzalez, who's the leading tackler for. You also had a sack for the Patriots. Matt Judon had a sack early on that really stopped the drive. It was simple errors that hurt the Eagles, and it didn't hurt them enough to lose. But there's so many other games to talk about. I'm going to go back to the 1 o'clock session because I'm going to talk about hopefully two games each week for each time slot. And I have to talk about this game. Niners-Steelers is going to be one of the 2 1 p.m. games we're going to talk about. And this game raised so many red flags around the Steelers to me. 1, their defense. Jesus. I mean, TJ Watt can't do everything. Alex Highsmith is pretty good. That secondary was invisible. I mean, you can maybe argue that Pat Peterson made a couple plays here and there in the beginning. But you can't go this game without talking about the day of Brandon Ayuk, as he will possibly emerge as one of the best receivers, most underrated receivers in the league this season. 8 catches for 129 and 2 touchdowns. That's wild from a guy like Brandon Ayuk, a former first-round pick of the Niners. George Kittle didn't do anything receiving, which hurt my fantasy team, but enough about my fantasy team. You have to also talk about the day of Christian McCaffrey. The Steelers cannot stop the ball on the ground or in the air. That's why they lost. And they couldn't do it back to the Niners because the ground game was invisible. They had a combined total of 41 rushing yards. Almost said 43, but it's 41. Leading receiver was Allen Robinson, who I forgot was on the Steelers to begin with. George Pickens got involved late. Deontay Johnson got injured. We'll see how long he could be out for. And Pat Freiermuth had 1 catch. I believe he might have gotten injured as well. But a very confusing game for me to watch because they didn't throw the ball out with Brock Purdy, but they didn't need to. And then you go to a game. I don't know what to talk about next. Because there's so many weirdly close games. But one rookie quarterback really made a statement for me. That's Anthony Richardson. A big statement to me from their week 1 game with Jacksonville. Colts, Jags is where we're going next. T-Law had a fumble and an interception. Travis Etienne had 18 touches for 77 yards and a touchdown late. Cartavius Bigsby also ran for a touchdown. And then we saw the reemergence of a certain Calvin Ridley, who I didn't know what he was going to be like. No one knew what he was going to be like. He emerged again. Zay Jones, also a big day receiving. 5 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. Big day on defense for Foyesade Luakan. He had 8 tackles along with Josh Allen. And Tyson Campbell had an interception. But it's really about the Colts who I want to talk about from this game. And Anthony Richardson. He was the best rookie quarterback from week 1. It's not a contest, to me at least. 1, he kept his team in the game. So did Bryce Young in their 24-10 loss to the Falcons. But when you have a better team, a lot of people I know thought Carolina was going to win that game. Going into it, Bryce Young was going to beat Desmond Ridder. And while Desmond Ridder did have one point go 4 for 4 for 0 yards, which is hilarious, Anthony Richardson never backed down. They were this is the largest margin that the Jags had the whole game was 10. You have to give so much credit, though, for the Jags defense in the fourth quarter The Colts got shut out in the fourth quarter. That's the reason that the Jags won this game. Michael Pittman had 8 catches for 97 yards, but Anthony Richardson, 24 of 37 for 223, a touchdown and an interception. He also ran 10 times for 40 yards and a touchdown. But there's a lot of positives you could take away from what the Colts did in this game. It's an interesting one. I mean, I could have talked about so many other games, but the emergence of the possible beginning of an emergence for Anthony Richardson had to be talked about for me. Two games, one other game from the middle segment of the day. I'm going to go. I mean, I could talk about Jordan Love's emergence over Justin Fields, how Justin Fields looked highly mid, but Dolphins Chargers has to be talked about. Tua Tagovailoa, 28 of 45 for 466 yards. He threw for the most yards. He went nuts. He's going to probably prove me wrong as well, because I did not expect a game like this from Tua this early on. He had that come from behind win last year, I believe it was against the Ravens, but Tyreek Hill had 215 receiving yards on 11 catches. Jeez. Raheem Mostert leading rusher with 10 for 37, but 466 yards is going to be the story of the day. Over 500 total yards on offense. But you have to also talk about the Chargers. They threw in a good effort. Justin Herbert actually didn't throw for many yards, but it was the efforts on the ground. And that's why I think the Jets will have a better chance to beat the Dolphins in the long run, because the Jets run the ball very well. Austin Eckler had 16 for 117 and a touchdown. Joshua Kelly hit 16 for 91 and a touchdown. And Herbert also had a rushing touchdown. Keenan Allen was the leading receiver with 6 for 76. Mike Williams, I believe, got injured and then came back. He had 4 for 45. But man, those defenses couldn't stop anything. And I think that will hurt both of them in the long run, because these are both fringe playoff contenders for me this season. But man, that game was also absolutely nuts. But before I go into the Jets preview, I have to talk about that Giants game from last night. I think the only way I can put this is I felt really bad for the Giants last night. Oh, wait, I didn't. And it was miscues. The young offensive line not being able to really mesh together. Constant miscommunication. Constant, I don't know. And the fact that the Cowboys had 265 total yards on offense and 40 points is wild. I don't know. Giants total yards, 171. He got shut out. For reference, I've saw the Jets have 93 and score points. Granted, it was a field goal, but it was still points. Giants never really gave themselves a chance in the rain last night. And the Cowboys came out firing. Mike McCarthy actually looked like a competent play caller. Which, how will that help the Cowboys' playoff implications this season? I'm not high on the Cowboys. I'm really not. And their long-term and the longevity of them. But listen, if you can go out, block a field goal, pick 6, I mean, it was the Cowboys' defense that really emerged. I mean, Dak Prescott, everyone thought he had a great game. He threw for 143 yards. Dude didn't do anything. It was on the ground, and it was all defensive forced turnovers that led to the points. You can't not make an argument after this game that Dak is elite, and he only does that against a lackluster Giants defense. Can't make that argument to me right now. Absolutely not. And I know people are going to overhype Dak's performance because Daniel Jones didn't look very good. But what's hilarious is he completed more passes than Dak did, yet had less yards. I don't know. I'm done talking about that game. Now it's time for the main event, and the reason I'm wearing this jersey, Jets-Bills, tonight, 8:15 p.m. Hopefully, you guys will be able to watch this episode of the Robbie Basel Show and then turn that game on. I certainly will. But the big storyline for me in this game, how will Aaron Rodgers actually look? I could have talked to you about the running game. How much will Breece Hall get back and his return back to the NFL after his season-ending injury against the Broncos last year? I could talk to you about Dalvin Cook. I could talk to you about the receivers. I could talk about DJ Reed saying that he have the best secondary or defense in the league, whatever the hell he said during the last week. I could talk about anything like that. But the quarterback will be forever the topic to be talked about for this game. I could talk to you about multiple other things, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be the story. That's what this game is all about. How will Aaron Rodgers look in this matchup against a very solid Bills defense? That's the talk. And will I think he will prove himself? Somewhat. He ain't going to go crazy. He is not going to go crazy like Jordan Love did yesterday. By any means, no. Will he get the job done? I don't know. And it's because of this man is why I think he will have a very hard time. That's his opposing quarterback, Josh Allen. Josh Allen's arguably is going to be a top 3 QB in the league for years to come. We all know this. You can argue about Mahomes, Hurts, Herbert, Burrow, but Josh Allen has to be in this conversation. Has to be. What he can do with his legs, what he can do with his arm, the durability he has, the ability to really not get injured at all. He's just a different breed, and it's really special. And it sucks as a division rival that I have to watch this go out and face the Jets 2 times a year. But I think the Bills are going to cause a problem. And a guy for me to watch out for, because he's torched the Jets multiple times, I believe, is Gabe Davis. And he has not been talked about enough this season. It's going to be Gabe Davis and the tight ends. Of course, I can talk about Stephon Diggs. Of course, I can talk about Josh Allen. But the other pieces around Diggs in the receiving game will be the reason that the Bills will have a good chance of winning this game tonight. Big thing to watch out for the Jets. Have to watch out for Garrett Wilson. Have to watch out for Allen Lazard. I do not know how this Bills secondary will line up against those two. And that is the reason why I will give the Jets the win tonight. The Bills, this game is going to be very close. Back and forth like a ping pong match. I think it's going to be a 3-point game. It's going to come down to the wire. And this is going to be the best game of week 1. You could argue it's Chargers and the Dolphins. You can argue it's a lot of these games. But I will tell you right now, this first half will be a defensive slugfest. We won't really see any offense till the second half. But expect a big day from Garrett Wilson, who will at least have 1 touchdown. And the Jets, my prediction for tonight is 24-21, the Jets, who will be losing at the end of the first half, and they will come from behind and win this game. That's my prediction for tonight. But I think it's time for the first recap. We go from previews to recaps, and we go to the Premier League next. You guys know I love talking about the Premier League. I got to talk to you about the Euros, but you guys have seen that in the last video, link down in the description. And, what these guys have done, Man City, you heard it from Dylan Best in the video, how unstoppable City is. And it's so frustrating as an opposing fan. You look at what they've done so far. You go out, you beat Burnley, shocker. You go beat Newcastle, you beat Sheffield, and then you beat Fulham 5-1. Man City truly are going to be a force to be reckoned with against the bad teams. They're not going to lose to a bad team, I think, all season. The worst result I think they can have is probably a draw against one of the bad teams. But this week they come out of the international break, and I'll preview this on Friday against West Ham United, a team that is in the top 4, despite not having Declan Rice. Have one of the best XGs in the league. It just doesn't make any sense. Also up there you have Tottenham Hotspur. They're in second, despite not having Harry Kane. So really, its narratives being blown away because we all talked about Harry Kane. How big of an impact will he have not on the field for Spurs? We've seen Richarlison play terrible. But let's look at their last match because they beat Burnley 5-2. And you've got to talk about Son playing as the number 9. Have to talk about that because you move Madison up the field. You add in Manor Solomon, the Israeli midfielder, who had a great game. He had an 8.9 against Burnley. You don't throw on Richarlison. You actually subbed on Richarlison. He had a 5.8 off the bench in 18 minutes. You had Perisic, who came off the bench. You had Højbjerg. This team it was slept on going into this season. And when you have teams like this, they can come out of the blue and stun you. Son Heung-min is or Heung-min's son, whatever you want to call him, is going to be a top 5 player in the Prem this season. He's had a very slow start up until this game against Burnley. But going to an international break, going to where you can get more time in friendlies with South Korea, it's going to really open some light for him. And he gets a very easy first game back with Tottenham as they host, I believe they host Sheffield United. They're playing Sheffield, but then you get a stretch of Arsenal and Liverpool. I talked about legitimacy for some of these teams. I started with Newcastle. Tottenham will show theirs in those 2 games. If they can grab 4 points, I think they could beat Liverpool. Arsenal, I don't think so. I think they're going to draw Arsenal and beat Liverpool. Possibly. We'll see. But after that, they have a very easy stretch. Probably their next competitive game could be Chelsea in November. But you can argue it's Man City in December. Tottenham can get so many points with their schedule. It's so crazy. But Tottenham, I think, could arguably be in first, early prediction, in November. Because Man City will have some tough teams to play against and drop points against. You have to add that they play in the Champions League, so they have to rotate. I mean, they have to play Newcastle in the EFL Cup. You have Arsenal, Brighton, United, Chelsea, Liverpool. And then you lead into that match with Tottenham. Not to mention they play some decently competent teams in the Champions League with Leipzig. Of course, you gotta add. They think that you can argue that Young Boys or Red Star Belgrade could be competent, but I don't think it's out of the blue that Tottenham could be in first at the end going into December with Man City's schedule. I don't think it's out of the possibility. Will it happen? Probably not, but I think it's very possible. Moving down the order, we have Arsenal in 5th. And while I will complain about Arsenal drawing Fulham and beating everyone else, you have to talk about it. I didn't get a chance to talk about this game. You go out and some people, actually, no, I think I have to talk about this. You get a quote, lucky win. It wasn't lucky. They deserve to win this game. The XG and the stats will prove it. I mean, Saka, Kai Havertz both missed open shots at goal, which are inexcusable. I don't think Kai Havertz should start in their first game back against Everton, but who knows? Brighton are proving me wrong. They're in 6th, but then you move down to Palace, who have 7 points. Brentford, Nottingham Forest have had a sneaky good start to the season as well. You go out, you beat Sheffield. You play a solid game at United. They actually lost in the EFL Cup, but they also lost to Arsenal. But look where they start with. A battle of, I think, eventual relegation teams in Burnley. Or a team you can argue could be in the relegation battle in Burnley. But eventually they get Luton Town in the end of October. Nottingham Forest could be a sneaky team this season. Keep moving up. Moving on. Sheffield United got their first points at the Premier League this season with a draw to Everton. Everton plays Arsenal next. Sheffield United, of course, plays the aforementioned Tottenham Hotspur. Burnley's in last with the worst goal difference. They have a worse goal difference in Luton Town, which is hilariously bad. But we did see Luton Town's first match at their home ground this season, which I think was very cool. And what's hilarious is that Luton Town had 39% possession and out-XG'd West Ham. That's what was going on. And the fact that this was possible for Luton, it's a big step up for them. And granted, they have 1 point through 3 matches. They have they have 0 points through 3 matches, And they play Fulham. I think they can beat Wolves. I think Wolves are really bad. And look what they have in the EFL Cup. I mean, granted, they played Gillingham in the first round of the Cup, which is hilariously bad. Did they out-XG them? Let's find out. Yeah. Granted, they didn't really out-XG Gillingham by much, but they beat Gillingham. And then they play Exeter City. Luton Town to the third round of the Cup at minimum is pretty solid. And not to mention it, after that cup game, they get Everton, Burnley. They're going to lose to Tottenham, Nottingham. Could we see Luton Town grab some serious points? That's a possibility as well. Bournemouth at 16th, not surprising. I did predict them to finish there. But one of the last teams I'm going to talk about in this recap has to be Newcastle. They've really disappointed me. Start off with the game against City. They beat Aston Villa. I believe they did get XG against City. They 0.3 XG against City. You play Liverpool. Concede to Darwin Nunez, up a man. You play Brighton next. And got out XG'd again and went 3-0 down with 20 minutes to go. They grabbed a late goal from Wilson, but Newcastle's really scaring me now. And their schedule the Premier gets a little bit easier, but their continental competitions don't get easy at all. Do you know who they play in the Champions League? I get to preview this group with Dylan in a couple of weeks, but they have AC Milan, PSG, Dortmund. That group is not going to make anything easier for Newcastle. That's why I predicted them to finish in the Europa League spot this season. But in the league, they have Brentford. They have Sheffield United. EFL Cup match with Man City, West Ham, Palace, Wolves. They do not really play an easy Premier League schedule. They don't really have many gimme matches in the beginning of the year. It's going to have to be a second half comeback for them. And Newcastle's falling apart could be falling apart at a very bad time in the season. In a couple of weeks, we'll really see what they prioritize. Do they prioritize the Champions League and the money, or the Premier League and the history? I'm very intrigued by that. Finally, I think it'll be the last team. United. They have not proven to me anything. Got lucky with Wolves. You got lucky to even be in the game with Arsenal. You got lucky to beat Nottingham. And they deserve to lose against Tottenham. I announced that game. You play Brighton next on Saturday. Now, that'll be one of the games I preview. In a match that could very well, they could be down immediately 3-0 in 20 minutes. I think Brighton will cause some problems. And their schedule doesn't get any easier. They play the Champions League on a Wednesday. A week from Wednesday is their first Champions League match. It's going to be wild. And they play Palace twice, Burnley, and then their schedule gets easy with Brentford, Sheffield. And then they play City on October 29th, by the way, which is one of the best days for soccer this year. Will be that October 29th. I think I might stream that day. That's a possibility. Comment below if you guys want me to see me stream the 29th. On Sunday, October 29th, or whenever those games are. But United's there, Chelsea. The less said about them, the better. But we're going to head from the pitch to the courts and the U.S. Open. Now, the U.S. Open, I talked about 2 weeks ago. I gave my predictions for some solid picks for the tournament. And spoiler alert, one of them made it, I believe, past the round of 16. Let me just make sure of this. Because there's one pick being eliminated. I mean, I was not good with all but one player. I did pick some correct upsets. And we're going to start with the women's tournament, because that tournament was amazing. We start off with our favorite picks. We have Caroline Garcia, who went out early. I think the less said about Garcia. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to think about Caroline Garcia right now. Because if you look how Caroline Garcia did in this tournament, I thought she was great to be ground the hards. She had so much potential. She was going to do a lot. And what did she do? This will load for me. Because she went out early. She went out so early. Like, it's just wild to me what happened. She lost in the first round to YF Wang. Hear that name later. I believe YF Wang caused more problems. But Caroline Garcia, the 7th seed, lost in the first round. And know who lost literally an hour before? I think it was like an hour before this. Sakari, my other pick. I think she lost. Actually, no, she lost on Monday. My mistake. Because an hour later, yeah, that's right. She won right after that. More about that player in a moment. We had Maria Sakari lose to Rebecca Masarova. Now, Sakari is complaining about like the air and like the smell of like weed or something, but you're the better player. You deserve to win on any situation. And she lost on court 17. But you go to the other picks. You had Svitolina and Madison Keys are my other picks. Let's find Svitolina because I had a lot of hope with her. And Svitolina, she lost in the third round to Jess Pegula. Granted, I made a mistake with picking 3 players to watch in this. I think it was 2 or 3 players to watch in the same bracket. I thought that was going to be a mistake. And then you realize, no, Robbie, Madison Keys made the semifinals. One of my sleepers actually made a semifinal. And she had this and choked it. It was terrible. I got to watch the match on this TV, and I watched it on my iPad. Madison Keys had a chance to win. Sabalenka held, broke, and then they went to a tiebreak, and then Sabalenka won the tiebreak. Went to a tiebreak again, and Sabalenka won again. Sabalenka is unstoppable in tiebreaks. I don't know what else to say. Madison Keys gives a goose egg to Sabalenka in the opening set, and then just chokes it away. Double tiebreak L's, and then Sabalenka made the final and lost to Coco Gauff, which shout out to Coco Gauff for winning the U.S. Open. She had a great tournament, and I'm shocked I didn't pick her to win the home tournament. I don't know. I will be better at this. Once I keep learning more about tennis, I will get better. But man, the women's picks, at least I had someone go to the semifinals. Men's picks, not as hot at all. And we'll start on day 1. I believe it was day 1 or day 2. Because, you know, being high on an unranked player is bold. And I called that Mackenzie McDonald would beat Agur Aliassime from Canada. And I was freaking right. Mackenzie McDonald, 8 total aces. He had 1 double fall in the match. The dude is a different breed in the first round. I don't know what else to say. Granted, he got destroyed. I believe he got destroyed in the second round in the men's singles. Yeah, he got destroyed by Gojo from Croatia. But Mackenzie McDonald made it out of the first round. I got a lot of criticism for that pick. But, I mean, let's go to the players I liked. And, you know, I don't know. Tommy Paul made the round of 16. And I thought he was going to be Ben Shelton. I didn't really think about Ben Shelton very much. But when you see a dude serve at 149 max, you're not beating that. Unless you're a top 5 player in the world. And Tommy Paul is not a top 5 player in the world. Ben Shelton was the story of the tournament. And Tommy Paul, granted, went out and beat Davidovich Fokina. 6-1, 6-0, and I thought that match was going to be immediately done. Tommy Paul goes in 4 sets and wins. He had a 5-set thriller with Safulin, who I did not really think would give up that much of a fight against Tommy Paul. But Tommy Paul made the round of 16. And then you're wondering why I haven't talked about Casper Ruud yet. Well, Casper Ruud lost in the second round. Again. Another top 5 player losing in the second round of a major. I had the same issue at Wimbledon. Casper lost to Zhang from China. I believe that's how you say it. 4-6, 7-5, 2-6, 6-love, 2-6. He deserved to lose. And I usually don't say this about a tennis player very much, but Casper Ruud was in a situation of getting unlucky. He deserved to lose. I mean, he went 4 sets in his first round matchup against an unseeded player. He got on a very unfortunate situation, and then he lost. But it was really another player who frustrated me was Grigor Dimitrov, who lost in the third round to Zverev, a player who I did not think was going to do anything this week. I mean, he made it to the quarterfinals. This was the situation where I thought Dimitrov was going to destroy Zverev, and Zverev proved me wrong. Dimitrov ran out of gas. 6-7, 7-6, 6-1, 6-1 for Zverev. This is a hell of a match at Louis Armstrong. It was a lot of fun to watch. So, unfortunately, I will get better. When I predict the Australian Open, I will be better. Hopefully. And what hopefully be better is that hopefully I get the software working for edits on the videos. That will be returning soon. When? Don't know. But that is all I have for you guys today on the Robbie Basel Show. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, hit the like button and subscribe down below. In the links in the description, there'll be a ton of stuff down there, including Into the Stands. This last episode with WIUR from last year. You'll have the link from the previous video in the description, all the handles, all the stuff you need to know. But once again, the big news of the day was Into the Stands returns on Thursday at 5 p.m. I want to see you guys there. All in the stream, in the chat, if we even have a chat for that one. But for now, I'm Robbie Basel saying so long. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I'll see you guys Friday. Goodbye, everyone.